In this video, I want to look at the top 20 saddest mods to ever be added into FNF. We're going to go ahead and rank them from pure misery, which is going to be the saddest, and then we're going to have sorrowful, gloomy, and mods that are just kind of sad. The criteria that I'm going to use when ranking these mods is going to be like the story itself, how sad or brutal the mod is, and if it actually made me and like the community as a whole feel bad. We're going to start this off with the saddest mods first, and that's going to be Mario Madness, specifically the All-Star Act 3. Now, the reason that this one makes it to the top for me is partly because the update is still fresh in my mind compared to some of the older mods that will appear on this list, but also because of the fact that Girlfriend is truly killed in like a horrific way in this mod. Mario literally turned her into a puppet and made her fight against the love of her life. And this scene here with Boyfriend was also heart. One of the few mods where both boyfriend and girlfriend don't survive in the end, which is another reason I think this mod makes it to the pure misery category. Next, we have the static memory mod, and if you're not like an OG in the community, you may not remember this one because I believe it's about 3 years old. Now, in this mod, boyfriend and girlfriend get into a car accident, and while boyfriend does survive, girlfriend does not. The mod also deals with boyfriend using music in order to like heal from all the grief that he suffered. And we see characters like Senpai trying to help him, who in this mod is actually a doctor. And we also see Skid and Pump kind of show up to try to lift his spirits. And a fun fact about this mod is that a lot of people think that it actually inspired the Silly Billy mod. And while there is really no proof that says that this is true, it does make sense in a way when you know the backstory. This next one may surprise people, but I'm going to add Ingrained to this tier. This was a song in the Hypno's Lullaby mod, and the story basically talks about what would happen if you were unable to stop Team Aqua's plans. And for those of you that may not be familiar with Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, their goal was basically to awaken the legendary Pokemon named Kyogre. And once this Pokemon was awake, he basically creates like a endless rainstorm and floods the world. Now, many of you may be thinking that everyone drowning is why this is a horror story, but you're actually wrong. The reason that this story is so dark is because Rosalia and her trainer actually do survive. When Rosalia sees her trainer drowning at the ocean floor, as a way to save her and herself, she uses the ability called Ingrain. This ability basically heals a Pokemon by absorbing nutrients from the earth. So Rosalia basically makes it to where her and her trainer are constantly drowning, but they can't die because they are continuously being healed. The sad part here is that in a way, this is a fate way worse than death. Now, moving over to the sorrowful tier, I want to start off with the soft mod. I know that this one is one of those mods that people either love or they absolutely hate, but I don't think that anyone can deny that Benjamin went through a lot. For those of you that don't know, Ben wanted to be a painter, but his parents really wanted him to be a musician like them. And when Ben would like disobey or just not follow their rules, they would abuse him. And to make matters even worse, they also tried to decide who he was going to marry, which was like this mod's version of Girlfriend. But this actually ended up being an issue because Boyfriend was gay in this universe. And while this mod did have a happy ending, the kid does go through a lot to get there. Next in this tier, we're going to go with the Boyfriend Dies mod. And honestly, this mod probably could have made it to the highest tier if the story was a bit more fleshed out. The gist of it though is that Daddy Dearest gets sick of sending hitmen after Boyfriend and decides to handle him himself. And of course, because Daddy Dearest is actually really strong, he's able to take out Boyfriend no problem. And while that part was a little lackluster, it was very heartbreaking to watch Girlfriend kind of cry over his body while Boyfriend's ghost is kind of watching from above. Next, we have another older mod called Everywhere at the End of Funk, and this one deals with dementia. Specifically, Boyfriend ends up getting dementia and he starts to slowly forget everyone that he ever loved. This mod is also sad because Boyfriend is only 30 years old in the mod, meaning that he gets this condition really young because dementia is usually for like older people. And honestly, I would love to see this mod get remade or remastered in some way because it was very well done, even though it is kind of old at this point. Next, we have the Vivian Plague mod, and this mod is where everyone basically in the FNF universe gets hit with some type of zombie plague. Boyfriend, Pico, and a few other people are able to escape the plague, but in order to get to safety, Boyfriend had to abandon Girlfriend. When he finally went outside of his hiding place to find food, he ends up running into Girlfriend and finds that she has been turned into a zombie. This mod is sad for me because we see that Boyfriend has a lot of regret for leaving Girlfriend behind. It also hits even harder because we know that if the roles were reversed, Girlfriend would have never left Boyfriend behind. She's proven that in several different mods and just in the main lore as well. Next, we're gonna go with the Red Mist Squidward mod, and funny enough, I just covered this character in another video, so I'll be brief here. The Red Mist story basically talks about how Squidward starts to have a mental breakdown after being booed off stage at a clarinet recital. In the creepypasta, he can't stop crying, hearing voices, and seeing weird images. And in the end, he ends up taking himself out in order to get away from all the pain. Next, we have one of the more popular mods to be introduced in FNF, and this is the Wednesday Infidelity mod. The most common backstory for these mods involve Mickey usually getting cheated on, losing all his friends, and even his brother Oswald. Usually, this will cause Mickey to try to take himself out, but in some of the mods, he doesn't even get to do that. The devil will instead take his body and soul and send him to hell so that his suffering can continue. I think this one probably would have been higher on the list if more of the stories actually made sense and were a bit more fleshed out, but all in all, this is definitely one of their sadder mods to be introduced into FNF. The last mod that we're going to put in this tier is going to be the Grieving. This one makes it so high because it's definitely pretty depressing. In the creepypasta, Gumball basically loses both of his siblings to some random serial slasher in the woods. And Gumball ends up having a lot of guilt because he feels like he could have done more to actually help his siblings, especially because he's the eldest. Although in reality, he probably just would have been bodied as well. But survivor's guilt is a real thing. Next, we're going to move on to the Gloomy tier, and we're going to actually start this one off with the World Below mod. This mod had multiple endings, which is the main reason that it isn't super high on the list, but two scenes really stood out in the mod. The one where a boyfriend is literally watching girlfriend burn was very dark and truly sad because we know that boyfriend is in love with girlfriend. He wouldn't just watch her burn like that. And the song where boyfriend and girlfriend both get taken by the strings was also very sad. While I know this mod was more on the dark and creepy side, it definitely has some sad elements to it. Next, we have another OG mod, and this one is called One Chance. This is a mod where boyfriend finds out that the whole planet is going to die in 6 days. In the mod, we see that a group of scientists created a cure for cancer and released the cure into the air so that it would spread all over the planet. But soon after that, they learned that the cure not only targets cancer cells, but also healthy cells as well. And this basically means that anybody that has to breathe is going to die. Boyfriend goes to the doctor's house because he starts to feel sick, and while he doesn't know what's happening, the doctor obviously does. So in order to make boyfriend happy in his final moments, he decides to have one final song with him. While this was a shorter mod, it was kind of heartbreaking in a way. Next, we're going to go with the Silly Billy mod, and while some of you may be saying that this one should be higher, let me explain. This mod could have been higher if we had more of like a detailed story on how boyfriend ended up losing girlfriend. Right now, it's mostly just a lot of speculation, and on top of that, in this universe, she's technically still with him. Girlfriend is literally living in his microphone, or at least her spirit is, because she refuses to lose him or to leave him. And while the cutscene in the mod is very emotional and kind of sad, it's also uplifting in a way. I also count the Silly Billy Lullaby when I'm talking about like the Silly Billy mods in general. The lyrics in that mod were also pretty sad, but I think the same points apply. Next, we have the Time and Tribulation mod, and this is another mod that has a few different endings, but I want to speak on the one where you defeat the little princess and her bodyguard. Boyfriend basically causes the little girl to be captured and sealed inside like this chest so that her evil parents can punish her. And while boyfriend seems to be like really messed up about the whole situation, girlfriend doesn't seem to care at all. In a little cutscene, we literally see her like with her feet kicked up and she's eating grapes. In the grand scheme of things, this mod isn't too bad because at least you have the option to choose a more heroic route, but certain routes are definitely sad in this one. Next, we have the Velma meets the original Velma mod, and in this one, we learn that Velma and the rest of the Scooby gang have been forced to live in this weird loop where they live for a while and then are devoured by this demonic version of Scooby once they start to ask too many questions. The sad part here is that Velma seems to be the only person in the gang that actually is aware of this messed up world that they're living in and is having like a bunch of gory flashbacks. She is also hunted down by Scooby in the original animation, so while this one is like more on the creepy side, it is kind of sad what she's going through as well, especially when you consider that she's powerless to really do anything about it. The last mod that I'm going to put in this tier is going to be one of my favorites, and that's going to be the Starving Artist mod. The original mod conveyed like the struggles of being an artist, how some people are basically like wrecking their body and mind just to try to make their art and to meet their deadlines, pretty much just burning themselves out. I also really enjoyed the V2 version of this mod, even though this guy right here named Ben was in it. He was basically like this cannibal that was obsessed with Rebecca, and he actually did a bit of damage to her here. Overall, this character did go through a lot of drama, but she does have a happy ending in the end. But both versions of this mod were actually surprisingly sad. The final category here is going to be called just the sad category, and we're going to add Gray here first and foremost. You may remember him from the Shinto song. He was the young man that had like his soul trapped inside a bootleg Pokemon game. And now this young man is been attacked by Shinto because he was able to actually capture her, which is not supposed to be possible. And while the Hypno Lullaby mod did actually have a lot of dialogue in it, I feel like this particular song had one of the most gut-wrenching voice lines.
So cold. Why is it so cold? Leave me alone, man.
Next, we have a mod that some of y'all were really thirsting over, and that's going to be Aruta. Now, I know most people played this mod to take a look at the assets, we'll say, but when playing the mod, it becomes clear that Aruta is only playing pranks on boyfriend and girlfriend because he's lonely, and he basically just wants people to keep him company. The mod does have a happy ending though, with them hugging it out and boyfriend and girlfriend getting to leave, but when you know the lore behind it, it is a little bit sad. Next, we have possibly the first lyrics mod, and that's going to be my boy Garcello. You knew he had to have a spot on this list. To this day, he is still one of my favorite mod characters and just one of my favorite mods in general. Garcello was one of the first characters her boyfriend battled that wasn't antagonistic towards him and was even like kind of nice to him in a way.
Tight bars, little man.
And I'm sure I'm not the only person that was a bit sad when Garcello passed away and turned into a ghost. Let me know what you think of my list down below, and if you want me to make a part 2, subscribe today to become a member of the Orseofkorse. We're almost at 1 million subscribers, and we'll see you tomorrow with another video. Peace, peace.